Lunch is going to start at 12:15. We're going to have Arnie his entire time. I want you to all give a warm welcome to Arnie.
You can take that off as needed. Yeah, how do I do that?
You can take that if needed.
Hi there. I tend to break things, sorry. So my name is Arnie, and this one is a bit high. And as been announced before, I will be talking about some bugs I've hunted in Instagram. So as you might have heard, I'm not a native English speaker. I'm actually from Belgium, 26 years old. So apologies for my mistakes that I will be making throughout this presentation. I have been informed by a colleague of mine that I should say third, not third, for some reason. So I'll try to pay attention to that, certainly. If you notice, please point it out to me, so for politeness reasons. You probably never heard of me, but if you did, it might have been because of a presentation I gave at Black Hat 2 years ago in 2014 about a packer I made that could evade antiviruses in general. Also, I'm one of the founders of an event in Belgium, the Cybersecurity Challenge. I don't know if you guys have such an event here in the United States. It's like a capture the flag competition, but nationwide for students. Do you have anything like that? Yeah? How is it called here? It has no name. Sorry? CCTC. Okay, cool. Well, indeed, in Belgium, we also started this off last year, and this year it's coming up again in a couple of weeks, actually. But enough about me. You're here for some technical content. So I'll first start with a brief introduction of bug bounty hunting and Instagram, which I think you probably already know. I'll go over the technical setup that I had to overcome in order to be able to really do some decent penetration testing on Instagram. And last but not least, I'll go over a couple of vulnerabilities I found, 9 in total, divided per category. So, why bug bounty hunting? Any bug bounty hunters in the room? Okay, see a couple of hands. Basically, I've been telling myself since 2012, when major bug bounty programs came to light, that I wanted to do this, but I never made time for this. So, bug bounty hunting, it's cool. It's like capture the flags, which I tend to like, and of course you can win some money with it. So it's also a nice extra feature. I did this hunting last year mainly, also a bit in the beginning of this year. Spent around 5 to 6 weeks on this, but I have a full-time job, so this was mainly during vacations, which my girlfriend only appreciated up to a certain level. Right, Instagram, in Europe it's not that well known, but I'm assuming that many of you have an Instagram account. Who does not have an Instagram account? Maybe let's... okay. Me neither. Cool. Nice. No, but why did I choose Instagram? Basically, I looked around for write-ups of bugs found in Instagram, and I didn't find too many when I started back in April. So figured, or it must be a very secure product, or it might have some bugs that have yet to be uncovered. So Instagram, what do you need to know for finding bugs? It's really a very simple access control model. So you have public accounts, you have private accounts. Public accounts, if you upload a picture, everybody can see it. A private account, it remains private for you. That's it's very simple, so it was easy to start off with. Now, first of all, I had to overcome some technical hurdles in order to be able to decently penetration test this product, which I'll go over with you now. So, just to be clear, I don't have an Instagram account, never had one, never used it. So what do? You go to the homepage and you find out how the program works. So I wanted to register an account, but that's only possible through a mobile app. So Instagram, it's really mobile app oriented. So you have the first app was on iOS, and shortly afterwards Android followed. And most of the bulk of the functionality is in the mobile apps. You can't even register on the web. Now, a couple of months ago, they did add register to their website, but back in the days, in April, I couldn't. So I went ahead and I chose Android. Basically, I have a bit more experience in my day-to-day job as security consultant with testing Android and iOS, and I feel a bit more comfortable with it. Also, iOS just works, but not always, as you have seen, so that's why I went for Android. And initially, if you're bug bounty hunting a product on the application layer, what you want to see is communication going back and forth between the client and the server, obviously. So you set up a proxy in your Android system settings. You add your certificate of your intercepting proxy, in my case Burp Suite, pretty well-known product, I think. We also have OWASP SAP, and I'll not go over that. But unfortunately, this was not working for Instagram. They are basically ignoring the proxy settings of the operating system, so I didn't see any traffic in my Burp. Only, well, I tested with my own, with browsing to my own blog, and that worked, but no traffic is visible from Instagram itself. So it was a bit, it was a small disappointment, no quick win. So I had to go the extra mile for this, and basically the approach I took was I set up an ad hoc Wi-Fi network to which my testing device with the Instagram app connected, and I routed the traffic through my MacBook. Here was my Burp Suite running, looking at the traffic, and my MacBook received internet from my personal device, which was then connected to the Wi-Fi. Now, you could also suggest that why don't you just plug in a network socket in your MacBook? But most of this testing, or at least some of this testing was performed next to a swimming pool on vacation, and they don't tend to have wired access there. So that's why I used a personal device as a route with USB tethering. Obviously here, all traffic on port 80 and 443 of the ad hoc Wi-Fi network was redirected to localhost 8080 where Burp was running. So finally I could inspect, I could see traffic coming through. You can see requests going to i.instagram.com. So yes, we can. Looking at the traffic, there was a second hurdle. So here it's a bit bigger. It's a login request. So to i.instagram.com, API v1 account login. And if you look at the parameters, you can see two parameters actually, SIG key version 4 and sign body. Now, zooming in on the sign body, one could notice, okay, it has two parts, 64 characters, a dot, and then a JSON array, which contains the input that I gave, username ABC, password ABC, along with some device identifiers from my testing device. But basically, if I modified any of these, I would get the response, your version of Instagram is out of date. So they have some protection. They have some signature being calculated over the payload that the mobile application is generating, really to prevent security testing. So this might be one of the reasons that not a lot of bugs were found as of now in Instagram. I investigated this a bit, and actually the algorithm that they use is an HMAC with SHA-265 and a secret key embedded in the mobile and Instagram for Android application. And they rotate the key every release, so it's not it's a hurdle. So what do you do when you need a key that is embedded in some kind of binary? You go fishing, indeed. Let's go fish the key. So I went ahead and I decompiled the Android application, the APK, decompiled it back to their Java code or something that looks like it. And I found some clues on where this signature is being generated. Because basically what we want in the end is to be able to also calculate this signature, and so that we can modify traffic and recalculate it. So I found a hint, get signature string. It's not very obfuscated. But unfortunately, this is a native function. It's not implemented in Java, but it's a native function implemented in some native libraries that were included. So you see here that they are loading the library Scrambler and Strings, which correspond with two libraries that are also included in the APK, libscrambler.so and libstrings.so. So I went ahead and decompiled these libraries, and mainly the function in libstrings, the get signature string. I used Hopper for this because it has a free trial of 30 minutes, so it was also convenient. IDA Pro is a bit more expensive, so that's why I went this way. And here, indeed, you have get signature string. Here you have the calculation of the HMAC SHA-265. And here, the key that is being used to generate is coming from the other library that was loaded, Scrambler get string. So I was like, okay, I'm really close. This is the function that serves the key, so I just must have a go with this function, and I'll get the key. this is the implementation of the function. It's pretty dynamic. It's not like a hard-coded embedded string that is being returned. No, it's being calculated, and there's some more calls to some other sub-functions. So this was not as easy to fish at as I would have thought. Now, I had the idea to really make a key generator out of this, but because they change the key every version, it would have been a lot of work. So I went ahead and took another approach. I used a hooking framework called Frida. Anybody heard of Frida before? Okay, it's pretty new. You also have some other hooking frameworks on Android. You have Xpose, you have Cydia, also for iOS. But Frida is really the new kid on the block that also supports hooking of native functions, whereas the other two, they have some support for it, but it's not as stable as hooking Java functions. So I went ahead, implemented this tiny little script that hooks scrambler getString function and just outputs it on returning. So it's really hooking the native library. And then I went ahead, run this script, try to log in again, so to trigger a calculation in the Instagram app, and it spits out the key that we need. Very long key. Of course, I was not sure if this was the key, so I went ahead, so I took my payload, I took the key, calculated the HMAC, and indeed, if you remember, this is indeed the signature that was in the original request. So yes, another tiny success. Now, we are not there yet, of course. We have the key, but what we really want to do is to be able to, in our intercepting proxy, to modify some data in a payload, forward it, and that it would be accepted by Instagram servers. So I went ahead and implemented an extender, so a burp extension. It's a plugin which basically hooks all outgoing requests. It checks, okay, is there a signed body parameter in there? If yes, recalculate the signature over the new payload and hot patch it. And good thing is, burp supports global hooking, so this hooks requests coming out from all the modules, not only the proxy or the repeater tool, but also the intruder and the scanner, which proved to be very, very helpful for penetration testing later on. So yes, this took me about 2 weeks. Not a single vulnerability seen, no money earned, just overcoming technical hurdles. But yes, finally I could start penetration testing. Another thing I would like to share, another technique that was actually it's pretty well known is if you decompile the APK from Instagram for Android, you can see that the strings are not obfuscated. The function names, they all get a random name, so like A and B. But the strings itself, they are not obfuscated. And the strings itself are very helpful to discover all the endpoints that are present in the application. So you can see accounts log in here, accounts change password, users look up. There's about 200 actually. Good thing is, old versions of APKs are being stored on several websites. So this allowed me to download all the old versions, grab out all the endpoints, and to compare these. So actually, I was keeping track of new endpoints that were being added to. New functionality is always more interesting to give a look. Right. So here you can see a diff from version 7.10 versus 7.9.2. This is actually from November, and already then you could see some endpoints related to two-factor authentication. They publicly launched it 1 or 2 weeks ago, but back in November it already appeared in the mobile Instagram for Android app. So that's interesting for me to be ahead of my game. Right. So that's the technical hurdles. Finally, I could start testing, and now the interesting stuff starts. First of all, I found one vulnerability related to infrastructure. Basically, what I did is, in all of these bug bounty programs, the scope varies. For example, PayPal only allows you to attack websites, so it really must be in paypal.com, the subdomain of paypal.com maybe. Facebook is a bit more wide, so they just say Instagram is in scope and go ahead and try to find something that is relevant. So I went ahead and started brute forcing subdomains, because a subdomain of Instagram.com is also interesting to as a target. And there's an open source tool which I did not make, but it's very good, Subroot. It's on GitHub in Python. And I went ahead and and enumerated the subdomains. Now, what came out? A whole lot came out. So they have a lot of subdomains, and I went over each. And one that struck me as interesting was graphite.instagram.com. Never heard of graphite, so I decided to dig a bit deeper. And at the time when I found this in June, graphite.instagram.com resolved to an internal IP address, 10.213.65.21, which does not seem right. Okay, so it's a public DNS server that is saying, okay, this subdomain is reachable on the internal IP address. Pretty weird. Graphite, I did not know this name, so I simply Googled it, and the first hit on Google pointed me to the direction of the engineering blog of the developers of Instagram. Basically, Graphite is a tool that they use to monitor a couple of servers, right? And they use a whole lot of other tools as well. They mentioned StatSD, Etsy, and I figured, maybe there's graphite.instagram.com, so maybe there are others as well. So I went ahead and scraped all the words of this engineering blog, cut them to make a dictionary out of it, and I redid the brute forcing. And a couple of additional hits came out. So there was not only Graphite resolving to an internal IP address, but also Sentry and sensu.instagram.com. So basically there are already 3 domains that are resolving to internal IP addresses, which does seem to be a mistake. Now the question is, okay, it does not seem right, but how can you exploit this? A public subdomain that is resolving to an internal IP address in the 10.star range? Anyone? Want to hear your thoughts? No? Basically, my first idea was, okay, on a local network, if I can claim this private IP address, and then can convince my victim to visit this subdomain, they're browsing to my web server, I can impersonate Instagram. Now, what can you do with it? First of all, yeah, you can serve them a backdoor or a login page over HTTP channel and hope that they would log in. It would work for most people, but not for everybody. But I also discovered that on the main top-level domain, Instagram.com, if you log in, the session cookie that is being generated actually also gets the attribute domain equals Instagram.com, which basically tells the browser, okay, this session cookie, you can send it to the top-level domain, but also to all the subdomains. Just go ahead and send it along. Right? So I tested this out, and indeed, Google Chrome incognito, I first log in Instagram.com, I then browse to graphite.instagram.com, first request, and indeed, the session cookie is being added to this request. So this makes my case a bit more interesting, because if I can now impersonate graphite.instagram.com and make somebody who is logged in on Instagram to visit this URL, maybe even in a hidden iframe on some website that I own, I'm in, because I can steal their session cookie, I can overtake their account. So that's indeed ID. On a local network, I must be on a local network as my victim, which is a heavy prerequisite. I claim the IP address. I lure them to browse to this website, and I steal their session cookie. Fortunately, this was not heavy enough for Facebook, so they rejected. They told me, okay, nice find. We discussed this at great lengths, but it's not eligible for a bug bounty. It was pretty disappointing. But this is the point where I gave up back in June, but I should not have given up here. Or I should have done something differently. Anybody knows why? Anybody heard of Instagram's $1 million bug? Yes? Okay. So one of these 3 domains that I noticed, sensu.instagram.com, was resolving to a private IP address back in June, 10.210. But in September, apparently, not found by me, apparently it started resolving to a public IP address. Right? Instagram is completely hosted on Amazon, so it's an Amazon AWS IP address. But this was effectively the way in for the Instagram $1 million bug that was found by Wesley Weinberg. Wesley is not here by any chance? Could be, huh? I'm pretty jealous of Wesley for this one. So basically what he found is he could actually see the content of sensu.instagram.com. It looked like this. This is coming from his blog. And long story short, there was a remote code execution vulnerability on this subdomain. He overtook censor.instagram.com, reported it, only got $2,500, which is small bounty for a remote code execution. And then he went a bit further and went ahead and started to prove to Facebook that this bounty is not really enough. So Leslie, what he did was he stole an AWS key that was hosted on censor.instagram.com. He used it to access some other AWS keys, which finally gave him access to everything related to Instagram. Really everything. The SSL certificates, the private keys for signing Android applications, iOS applications, source code, really everything. Now, I don't want to go in too much detail too far, but Facebook did not like this part. They liked this part. Yes. They liked this part. They rewarded him for this part, but they did not very much like this part. So basically what happened is, once he reported this, and small note, he also downloaded some of these things, which is not a good thing to do, of course. This triggered the CTO of Facebook, Alex Stamos, to call Wesley's boss, basically, Synack, the company where he was working for, to say he was being unethical. It was a big mess, and there was a lot of comments back and forth on Reddit, for example. Don't know who followed it. I'll leave it open to you to make up your mind whether this was a good thing or not. But point is, this is also not correct from Facebook, I think. If you get a remote code execution, even if you think there's nothing, it's a big deal. Right. So that was the first one. No money gained. Bit of disappointment around December when I read this. But okay, up to the next one. Next one is in the web category. This is also an interesting one, actually. One I learned about while reading write-ups on HackerOne.com. Instagram profile allows you to enter a link of your blog, for example, and it's being shown on your public profile page, which is just instagram.com/ and then your username. This is one of my many test accounts. So I went ahead and I pointed this link to arneswin.net/instagram.html. And basically what happens is, if you click it, it will open in a new tab. Right? So you click, it will open in a new tab. And what few people know, but what all browsers do is, if a new tab is opened by clicking in the previous tab, the new tab gets a reference to the parent tab. Right? It gets a reference, and it can actually do something useful with this. One of the things it can do is redirect the previous tab. Stealthy. So if you have just, this was all the code being hosted on my page. Window opener, location replace, redirect of the first tab, and you can see it happening right here. So the idea here is, if I put a page like this on my profile, somebody clicks it, I can actually redirect their previous tab, which was pointing at Instagram.com. I can redirect it to any page I would like. A page that looks like Instagram.com, that also asks for credentials, saying, yeah, you have been inactive for too long, please relog in. And that's kind of an issue. So I reported this to Facebook, and it was valid, but I was not the first one to find it. So there's a good blog post about this as well for those who are interested. They told me, okay, it's a duplicate, thank you for submitting. So very close, but not close enough. I do like cats. So next one was my first real success, also in the web category, and this was web server directory enumeration. So browsing to Instagram, I'm from Belgium, and my native language is Dutch, and it's also like that on my operating system. So if I browse to Instagram.com, I get served a Dutch welcome page. But just viewing a couple of Google hits, I noticed that if you append an HL, home language, I think, parameter, equals EN, it would serve the same page in English, like the translation option. So nothing wrong with that. But I also noticed that if I put / before it, it would still serve me the English welcome page, which is a bit odd because the default is Dutch for me, but it's still working. So basically, this is still working, which points to a path traversal vulnerability. So I went ahead and tried to read out some other files. etc password is a good one to guess because it's present on all Linux operating systems. I used a %00 trick in order to cut off the remainder of the path, but unfortunately I got back an error. No idea what happened on their end. Maybe they detected the attack. Maybe they don't have this file on their system. Who knows? But this didn't work. So I was thinking, okay, I found a clue, but I have not really validated this vulnerability yet. So I have to go a step further. And I deep dived into the documentation of Django. If you read the engineering blog of Instagram, Instagram is being coded in Python in Django. So I looked up the documentation, and it has some references to translation files. And there's also a path being exposed there. So Django conf locale language code, which is the EN I was talking about, LC messages Django.bo. So I figured, okay, if my input is being inserted here, I could go up one directory and go back to see if I can actually indeed inject in this. So I went ahead, /locale/en, and indeed I still got the English version landing page of Instagram, which confirmed the vulnerability, because if I replace locale with wrong, it would serve me the Dutch one. So indeed I have a vulnerability, but I cannot read out any files. Even if I could, the file that is being read in the backend is being parsed for translation files in the PO format, which I couldn't upload to Instagram. So that's a pity. How did I exploit this? Basically, I downloaded a predictable file path list from the FuzzDB project, such lots of common directory names. And I started fuzzing for // the guess in the directory, // locale nl. So if the directory would exist, I would get a hit, a 200. If not, I would get a 404. And basically, indeed, I got 42 hits for directories. So I could, with this vulnerability, start reading out directory names on Instagram's production servers. Okay, so I went ahead and reported, okay, I can read a lot of things on your production servers. But Facebook came back to me and told me, okay, this issue does not qualify, which was not fun to read. Because basically, I had read access. I could also start enumerating all the home users that they have in /home, for example. So I figured, okay, maybe this must be a mistake. So I asked for some elaboration. And they came back and they told me, okay, it was not the correct reply. So here's your $500. Which was nice. Yes. Finally, the happy cats. Okay. A couple of vulnerabilities I found were also a combination of vulnerabilities in distinct spaces. So this one here, private account shared pictures token entropy, is actually a combination of some vulnerabilities on the mobile application endpoints, but also on the web endpoints. So Instagram, it's all about sharing of pictures. So I went ahead and uploaded a picture on one of my test accounts, and I looked at the request and, in this case, the response that came back in case of a successful upload. Basically, my picture gets a unique ID, which is very long. It's impossible to brute force, I tried. And it also gets a code, a unique code. So the internal ID here is being used to reference the image internally. The code is used for something else. So it's a length of 10 characters. And basically, this code is part of the unique link, the permalink of this picture. So if you browse to instagram.com/p from permalink / and then this code, this allows you to land on the picture. Now, in my case, I did this upload with a private account. And in this case, this permalink is not visible to anybody. It's only visible to the private account. So I was logged in my private account, and if I browsed here, I could see the picture that I uploaded, but not publicly. So, as it's supposed to be. Now, imagine that a private account owner wants to share his or her picture with someone who does not have Instagram. There are a couple of people who don't have Instagram, so it's a valid use case, I think. So Instagram, it has some functionality to generate this permalink, but also change the access control around it. So in the Android app, you can select your picture and say copy share URL, which responds to the following GET request being made: get API v1 media, the unique ID of my picture, and then permalink. And then it would respond with the permalink we actually already had. So this is the permalink with the token we already had. But the big thing here is, if the owner of the picture made this request, the access control of this permalink was changed. So now it becomes visible to anybody. Even when you're not logged in, the picture can be seen. And this got me thinking, okay, I can imagine a couple of private account owners who have used this functionality to share URLs with a couple of their friends who don't have Instagram. So the only thing that is withholding me from finding out about all these pictures is this token, this code, this 10-digit code, which looks pretty random. You have capitals, you have digits, you have lowercase, and you even have a dash here. But I started to investigate this a bit further and came to some conclusions. First of all, I went ahead and looked at the unique codes of some public accounts, which allow me to enumerate all of them. And here I went ahead and took the founders of Instagram, Kevin and Mike, enumerated a lot of their picture codes, and I started to notice a pattern in the 7th and 8th character. So if you look closely, the 7th character only differs between two options here, G and capital A, and the 8th character is really static. And what's really interesting is that Instagram accounts also have a unique identifier, and the one of Kevin and Mike, they only differ by 1. So you see he's ID number 1, he's ID number 4. It's obviously incremental. And based on, they have the same 7th and 8th character combinations. So as an attacker, this is interesting, because if I want to finally steal some pictures of some private account, I want to learn about these two characters. I just look up a user, a public account user with an ID which is close, and I could know these two characters. So 2 out of 10 are down, basically, which is not enough. So I had to go a bit further as well, and I implemented a monitor script, because of a private account, you can, on their profile page, see how many pictures they have posted up until now. So I wrote a monitor script who looks at this number, and as soon as this increases, so as soon as a private account has posted another picture, I also upload a picture with my attacker account, but really quickly as a script, as a Python script. And this also got an interesting result, because the 7th and 8th character are based on the user identifier, but the first 6 characters are based on time. So if I really quickly also upload a picture, you can see, so these are the codes of my private account, monitored account, of my test account obviously, and these are the ones of my public account generated by my monitor script. You can see that the first 4 characters are the same. So if I use this script to monitor a private account, I can remove the dependency. I can predict the first 4 characters. So we have the first 4, 7th and 8th, that only leaves 4, and this actually becomes brute forceable, because the alphabet is 64 characters. It's lowercase, uppercase, digits, and dash and underscore. 64 to the 4th times 2, because of the 7th character having 2 options, equals 33 million possibilities, which you can brute force quite easily in a couple of days with a dedicated wfuzz or intruder, burp intruder. So this actually becomes feasible. And this also got accepted by Facebook. So they told me, okay, indeed interesting find. So they made the code a lot longer. You'll see in the next one. Because there's something peculiar about the GET request that makes a private picture become publicly accessible via the permalink. It's a GET request. Why is this a problem? Sorry? Anybody can read it. That's also a problem. But why is this in this context? I'm looking for something else. Basically, CSRF indeed. And basically, this request is stateful. It changes the access control of this permalink. But for stateful requests, you should use post. You should not use get. And also, CSRF is indeed in play here. Because what I noticed is, this is a request being made by the Instagram for Android mobile application with a custom user agent being set by the thick client, and with a session cookie, which also holds a reference to the platform on which this session cookie was generated. In this case, mobile for Android. iOS is 2, I think the web is 4, so they also keep track of that. And for post requests, Instagram would not allow this request to be replayed with a session cookie of a web session. But for GET requests, they would. So this makes this eligible for CSRF. How come? If my victim is logged in on Instagram.com, and I can convince him or her to browse to this link with an identifier of one of their private pictures, the permalink would become publicly accessible without them knowing it, without their consent. Now, that's indeed a valid assumption, but there's some more work to do, because in order to make this exploitation work, I need two more things. First of all, I need to find the unique identifier of a private picture of my victim, which is not public information. And also, I need to find out this permalink, which has grown a bit, as you can see. So it's not 10 characters anymore, it's 35 or something. So it's not guessable anymore. So this also had to be taken into account. And for these two prerequisites, I used some other minor vulnerabilities that leak actually this info. So to find out private account pictures IDs, there was a vulnerability in an endpoint which only works when a private account is being tagged in a picture. Then this picture would be served via the endpoint user tags, the user ID, and then feed. So the response would contain some private image IDs. And this request could also be made by an attacker account for a victim account, right? So the response would still be there, which is a typical authorization bypass flaw. Next up, how to find a permalink. This one was actually even easier. So this GET request, if I'm an attacker and I have this GET request, I could just replace the identifier of my own picture with the private image ID, and it would also respond. So this is another vulnerability in this endpoint that also leaks this permalink. So all combined, I could leak, or I could make private pictures become publicly accessible from private accounts, and this was also awarded $1,000. Okay, sixth vulnerability, if you're not sleeping yet. Okay. This one is also in the web and mobile space, and this one allowed me to enumerate email addresses. Well, basically enumerate accounts based on email addresses. So if you subscribe to Instagram, you get an email to confirm your email address. But whether you click or not, your account will keep on working. So I don't really understand why this is the case, but this is some functionality that exists. So if you click the link, you will browse to this URL, confirm email, and then some base64 encoded parameter, which, if decoded, decodes to the email address that you used. Instagram pentest user is one of mine. And okay, I figured, okay, this is interesting. Maybe I can change this email address. That didn't work, but what did work is, if you go to this link, actually you first must authenticate as this account in order to confirm your email address. Now, if I logged in as another account, it would tell me, you have to log in as this user linked to this email address in order to confirm it. You cannot be logged in as another user, in this case attacker. You must be logged in as this user, which is actually an oracle for me, right? If I change the parameter to mark.zuckerberg@facebook.com, Facebook would tell me, no, you have to log in as the Mark Zuckerberg in order to confirm this email address. So I could start guessing email addresses and find out the accounts linked to them, which might not be a big issue for us, but in countries where there is some censorship, this is actually interesting to be able to link hacktivists to Instagram accounts for governments, for example. And why is this also in the mobile space? Basically, same endpoint, same problem. Okay. So this also got awarded by Facebook. Seventh, interesting to know, if you have an Instagram account, for those few who have, If you lose your password and you don't have a linked email address, you lose your account. Basically, it's stated if you can't access the email you registered with, and you didn't link your Instagram account to Facebook, we're not able to give you access to this account, so you lose it. That was the inspiration of this vulnerability. Because if you want to change your password, it requires your old password to be entered, which is good practice. But if you change your email address, it does not ask you for your current password. Although password reset functionality based on the email address can also yield you access to the account. So this doesn't seem right. But Instagram has a countermeasure for this. So if I change the email address of this account to Instagram Pentesting 2, I had lots of these email addresses. If I change it, a new mail is being sent to Instagram Pentesting 2, but also a mail is being sent to the old email address saying, somebody changed your email address. If it wasn't you, click here and you can secure your account again. And indeed, if you click there, you can run through a couple of pages and you can reclaim your account, change your password. So that's basically Instagram's protection against this, which is pretty odd. I would just require the old password to be entered, but this is also an option. Problem here is, if an attacker changes the email address not once but twice, he would also get a link to reclaim his account. And this was the issue here. The link would still work, right? So the attacker has two email addresses, and this attack supposes, or the prerequisite is here, that an attacker would get temporary access to an Instagram account. For example, a mobile phone that is being left on the table during a toilet visit. You change the email address twice, and then you end up in the following situation. The victim has one reclaim link, but the attacker also has one on the second email address he used. So the attacker would go ahead and reset the password of the account, reclaim the account, get access to the account. The victim would use his or her reclaim link to overtake the access again. And this is where the problem is. This link, although being generated after this one, would still work. Finally, the attacker can again reclaim the account. There's no way for the victim to get it back. The email address is gone. The password has been changed, so game over. This one was also awarded with $2,000, so that was a generous award. Thanks. Up next is the easiest one and also the highest bounty that I've earned. It's actually about an endpoint that I found with my script that decompiled all the APKs and compared the endpoints. In version 6.20.1, a new endpoint appeared, discover/su refill, which I couldn't trigger by just using the mobile app. So it was never used by the TIC client at the time, and I've never seen it being used. It has actually been removed again. But at the time, it was actually responding to requests. So I tried to forge a request, but the response would just say, you're missing a couple of parameters, we cannot process your request. So I went ahead and looked up where this string was in the decompiled Java, and it gave me a couple of hints of parameters that I should give along. So that's what I did. I logged in as a public account, one of my test accounts, and I feeded the endpoint a target ID of a private test account of mine, right? No relationship between these accounts, so nothing should be shown. But actually what was shown were the users that this private account was following at the time. Now, I'm a fan of Bruce Springsteen, so indeed, my test account was following Bruce Springsteen. And the nice part here is, okay, not only the name is being leaked, but also a couple of links to pictures of Bruce Springsteen are in the response. Now, Bruce Springsteen is a public account, but I also figured, if this private account is following other private accounts, maybe I can also get access to private pictures, which was unfortunately not the case. So the arrays were empty for private accounts, but still I could find out which users a private account was following, which is not allowed. So unfortunately not this one, but still a nice and generous award of $2,500 for 5 minutes of work. So that was also nice. Now, last but not least, this is my last one. Actually, also a quite interesting one, because this one allowed me to directly steal money from Instagram. Now, On Instagram, you can link your account to a mobile phone number. Right? You enter the phone number, they send you a text, you need to enter the code that they sent you, 6 digits. If you don't enter the code, we'll call you in 3 minutes. So Instagram actually was going to call me. I entered my phone, and effectively they started calling me from California, in Belgium. So indeed, I got some calls. I cannot let you hear it right now, but it was basically saying, your code for INSTagram is 623121. And I figured, okay, I have the ability to let them call me. Let's register a premium number and see if they call that. Why not? Might even work. So I had to find a premium number. Honestly, this was not easy to do, to find reliable premium numbers. I looked on the internet, I looked for 3 hours, I guess, just to find myself a couple of premium numbers that worked. Finally ended up on Eurocall24.com, which allows you to register a lot of premium numbers and allowed me to have a couple of tries, and tried 10-ish numbers or so, but didn't get any response. So I almost gave up until I actually used a number in the United Kingdom, and I actually saw the live call coming in from Instagram to my premium number accounts. Right? So at this time, Instagram was directly giving me money. But it got a bit better because I could replay this call. I could replay it a lot. So the only protection that there was protection on the endpoint, so I had to wait for 30 seconds, but I could just start to looping. So I started looping with a throttle of 30 seconds in between, and as a proof of concept, I called 60 times. My number was generating only a bit of money, but by calling 60 times, I had earned £1 in half an hour. For free. So okay, I went ahead and reported this. And then the reaction of Facebook came. So I'll read it out loud. This is intentional behavior in our products. I'll repeat. This is intentional behavior in our products. Oh. So first I was disappointed. I said, okay, what's that? But then it came to me. This is intentional behavior. Am I really allowed to do this? So I had a moral dilemma here, right? I had it black on white, it was allowed. But I decided to elaborate a bit and tell them, okay, if I do this with one account, indeed I have a threshold of 30 seconds and I can only steal $1,000 a month. But I can happily make 100 accounts and make them all send requests to the same premium number because that's all allowed. And I could really earn a lot of money. And they came around. So they basically said, unfortunately, of course. But they came around and they told me, okay, we'll do some fine-tuning of our rate limitation and add some more protection. And they gave me $2,000. Right. So that's it. Small overview. 9 vulnerabilities. In total, $10,000, almost $10,000 was earned, plus 1 because I get to keep the pound. And small note, I gave away 4 of my bounties to a non-profit, and Facebook does match the bounty. So basically, thanks. It went to a non-profit for street children in Ethiopia. So they have a lot of they have more benefit of it than me. So that's it. Some more advice if you want to get into bug bounty yourself. If you're hunting, keep calm and try harder. If you're reporting, be patient. And when you're disclosing things, be responsible. Because I have some other outstanding vulnerabilities who have not been fixed yet, and these will only be disclosed when they have been fixed. So keep an eye on my blog, and thank you for your attention.